I'd like now to introduce our first CFA corporate leader on the AGM agenda, Michael Graydon. And Michael is the CEO of Food, Health and Consumer Products of Canada. And FHCP may be a new grouping of letters to you, and they went through an interesting transition in the midst of COVID, so kudos to you, Michael. And with that, I'll invite you to take the floor. Thank you. And I think you're on mute. There you go. Perfect.
Really nice to see you. I wish we were sort of together in Ottawa experiencing this, but congratulations on executing this in the manner that you have. I really do appreciate the opportunity to meet with you today. We're pleased to be working in close partnership on so many files with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. But we're pleased with our strong working relationship and really appreciate CFA's dedication and leadership, especially on the retail consolidation file. I'd like to give you a brief update on our ongoing advocacy efforts on this file. As you'll see from the next slide, we have a very broad membership within our organization. We represent about 85% of the products that you see on grocery shelves and pharmacy shelves here in Canada. We represent about 350,000 manufacturing jobs in over 6,000 plants across the country. On the next slide, you'll see a further list of some of these organizations that range everywhere from small to medium enterprises to some of the global juggernauts that we all are very familiar with. The current retail consolidation situation is having a significant economic impact that is really affecting the capital investment for manufacturing expansion in this country, as well as product innovation, which is then translating into the impact on the consumer in regards to consumer choice and eventually inflation and an increase in cost. As you can see on the next slide, one of the main processes that we've undertaken in moving ourselves forward is to create very strong coalitions. And we're very much appreciate CFA's leadership in working on this file with us. As you can see from this slide, there are many organizations within our jurisdiction, many of them with strong connections to agriculture that are supporting the efforts that we're undertaking. We also have coalitions in Quebec, where we work very closely with CTAC, and in Ontario, where we work very closely with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, Dairy Farmers of Ontario, as well as the Ontario Dairy Producers. We really do look to your continued support to accelerate the momentum at the provincial and federal levels, and really do appreciate the opportunity for today's output. In regards to the next slide, you'll see the political developments that have taken place over the last little while. There's been some very important developments in the past number of months. Last November, the House of Commons Agricultural Committee launched a study looking into processing capacity and the impacts of unfair retail practices. We were pleased the committee invited FHCP to appear, and the MPs recognized the negative impacts of retail practices on farmers and manufacturers and the needs to address this. I'm also pleased to see how many of our coalition partners have also appeared before the committee and echoed our concerns and also brought forward the unique concerns to their specific associations. In December, the federal, provincial, territorial agricultural ministers unanimously agreed to create a working group to study retail practices with a report that is due out in July. We applaud this decision as it further recognition of the critical importance of the food industry and the vital need to address food insecurity, strengthen food and other essential goods supplies chains, and to bolster domestic manufacturing in this country. This is a big win for the cause, and I firmly believe our collective advocacy efforts have helped to achieve this. So far, we've had 2 meetings with the working group and look forward to the future meetings and providing them with the thought leadership to find a workable solution. On the next slide, you'll see the progress to date, and our strategy from the outset was built to build a broad and active political campaign and to build and expand the roster of political champions necessary to build the broad coalition of support and fairness and accountability in retail practices. Our strategy's got a two-tiered approach, both at the federal and provincial levels, with a focus on Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia, where we believe politically there is an appetite for action. Another key aspect of our strategy is to engage our partners like CFA and our member companies and employees to send letters to elected officials in support of this initiative. This slide also shows how we track, measure our advocacy efforts since the start and how our activities and relationships are driving our progress. On the next slide, you'll see just basically how the sediment of the retail code has been working. And we have created widespread and broad support. And as we continue our outreach and education, government and elected officials, we are increasingly seeing the more that they understand, the more positive they are with regards to the concept of a code of conduct here in Canada. So this is some proof, I think, that we are in fact moving the needle. On the next slide, you'll see the draft practice principles, and we are preparing a draft fair practice code that provincial governments will be in a position to be able to utilize as we move forward, and we obviously will be presenting that to the agricultural ministers as well. The code that we are working on is really styled after the foundation of the very successful code that is in place in the UK today, and it works off a number of principles, really to regulate the standards of business conduct, to enhance efficiencies, ensure transparency and certainty, minimize disputes and provide for dispute resolution, and to support good faith in commercial dealings. Ultimately, it is designed to change the culture so that it's less punitive and more about creating these efficiencies from farm gate to shelf, and to creating a strong win for the manufacturers, agricultural community, for the retailers, and most importantly, for the consumers. On our final slide, I want to just say thank you again to the CFA. We have made some very, very strong progress, and we do really, Mary, thank you for your leadership and support as we continue to move this very important file forward. Retail consolidation is an issue that's not just a manufacturing issue. It is a very large agricultural issue and will have significant impact on the future of agriculture in our country. And I think it's critically important that we have a very strong manufacturing community in this country as well, because we as a sector utilize almost 50 and in some provinces 60% of the agricultural output for the purposes of processing. So it is very critical to all of us, and as I said, I thank you very much for your continued support and wish you continued good luck with the remainder of your conference. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Michael. And I think the school of hard knocks that COVID has been for us this past year has certainly taught us that every link in the value food chain is important. So our partnership with you is certainly one of those important links that we look forward to strengthening.